We usually think of history as this long, horizontal timeline, stretching endlessly from left to right. But what happens if we look at it vertically? What if we drill down into one single solitary date and look at everything that happened across the centuries? Today, we're going to dive right into a single date that serves as a really profound historical ledger of human triumph, tragedy, and progress. We're talking about July 3rd. A single date, 1,000 stories that shaped the world. In this explainer, we're going to literally peel back the layers of time. You'll see how July 3rd acts as a vertical slice of our shared human experience. By simply following this one calendar day through the ages, we'll connect the rise of ancient empires directly to the complexities of the modern world. It is a completely fascinating way to learn, so let's get right into it. Part 1. Ancient and Medieval Worlds. Our journey actually kicks off way back in antiquity, an era pretty much defined by the slow, bloody consolidation of isolated empires. Starting in the year 324, Roman Emperor Constantine I defeated Licinius. This was a major victory that really cemented his path towards sole rule. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and we see massive shifts in global power happening on this exact day. Hugh Capet was crowned King of France in 987. A young William the Conqueror rose to become the Duke of Normandy in 1035. And later, the tables really turned on European royalty when King Louis IX was captured during the Seventh Crusade in 1250. Part 2. Exploration, colonies, and early modern politics. As the centuries roll on, the world gets a lot more connected, and the narrative of July 3rd expands with it. As empires stretch their reach across oceans, this single date logs some stunning global variety. You've got Spanish conquistador Diego de Almagro departing for his grueling 1535 expedition toward Chile, Samuel de Champlain laying the foundations of Quebec City in 1608, and British sailor Robert Pitcairn sighting Pitcairn Island in 1767. But of course, this day was also marked by deep conflict. In 1778 alone, Prussia declared war on Austria, while on a completely different continent, the brutal Wyoming Valley Massacre occurred during the American Revolutionary War. Now, check out this incredible historical irony involving one of history's most famous figures, George Washington. On July 3rd, 1754, during the French and Indian War, a young Washington tasted bitter defeat, actually surrendering Fort Necessity to French forces. Yet, exactly 21 years later to the day, in 1775, that same man formally stepped up to take command of the Continental Army during the American Revolution. The symmetry of history on this date is just staggering. Which brings us to Part 3, 19th century turning points. Jumping into the 1800s, things really start speeding up, bringing rapid national expansion right into sharp focus. This single day essentially encapsulates a young America actively defining its borders, its economy, and its military might. Early on in 1814, American forces captured Fort Erie during the War of 1812. Just 5 years later, in 1819, the Bank for Savings opened in New York, commonly recognized as the very first savings bank in the United States. Toward the end of the century, the map grew when Idaho became the 43rd state on July 3rd, 1890. And projecting power outward, in 1898, the U.S. Navy decisively defeated Spanish forces in the Battle of Santiago de Cuba. But look, the absolute undeniable anchor of the 19th century on this date, that would be 1863. This day marked the end of the Battle of Gettysburg. The failure of Pickett's charge secured a major victory for the Union, forever etching July 3rd as a crucial, definitive turning point in the American Civil War. History isn't just about human conquests, though. In a much quieter and frankly tragic milestone that same century, July 3rd, 1844, marked a terrible loss for the natural world. On this day in Iceland, the last known pair of great auks was killed. This single act plunged an entire species into permanent extinction. It's a really somber reminder of human impact permanently recorded on our date. Moving to Part 4, 20th Century Global Shifts. Stepping into the 20th century, our explainer reveals a world rapidly transforming, engulfed in global wars and unprecedented technological leaps. Mid-century, July 3rd was deeply etched into the history of World War II. In 1944, Soviet forces recaptured the city of Minsk from Nazi Germany. It was a monumental, incredibly hard-fought victory against occupation. And as we'll see a bit later, the gravity of this day is still deeply honored in the region today. The mid-century history on July 3rd is heavily defined by maritime milestones, featuring some stark contrasts between painful military action and incredible engineering. In 1940, the British Royal Navy attacked French naval forces at Mers el-Kabir, Algeria, specifically to prevent those ships from falling under German control. A decade later, in 1950, the very first aircraft carrier strikes of the Korean War were launched against North Korean targets. But then, in a real triumph of peace, in 1952, the ocean liner SS United States began its maiden voyage on July 3rd. That's a vessel that would go on to set astonishing transatlantic speed records. Exactly 10 years after that maiden voyage, the year 1962 logged two massive milestones for freedom and equality on the very same day. First, on a geopolitical scale, Algeria formally gained its independence from France after a staggering 132 years of French rule. And on a deeply cultural scale in the United States, athletic pioneer Jackie Robinson became the first African American to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Two vastly different events, united by a theme of breaking barriers on July 3rd. Now, for the music world, this date carries a heavy, almost eerie resonance. July 3rd marks the untimely deaths of two massive rock legends, incredibly just 2 years apart. In 1969, Rolling Stones founder Brian Jones was found dead in England. Exactly 2 years later, in 1971, Doors frontman Jim Morrison died in Paris. Closing out the 20th century, July 3rd continued to log events of profound gravity. In 1979, the American justice system saw Dan White sentenced for the high-profile killings of San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. In 1986, it was a day of huge symbolic celebration as President Ronald Reagan participated in relighting the Statue of Liberty after its massive restoration. 2 years later, the date recorded international tragedy when the U.S. Navy cruiser USS Vincennes shot down Iran Air Flight 655, killing all 290 people aboard. And ending the century on a note of heritage, in 1996, the historic Stone of Scone was finally returned from England to Scotland after centuries away. Finally, we arrive at Part 5, Modern Era and Legacy. Bringing this right up to our highly interconnected, fast-paced modern age, the sheer variety of human endeavor occurring on this day is just staggering. In 2011, Novak Djokovic reached a huge sports milestone, winning his very first Wimbledon men's singles title. In 2013, we see a stark political shift as Egypt's military removed President Mohamed Morsi from office. 2 years later, in 2015, human ingenuity soared, literally, when the solar-powered aircraft Solar Impulse 2 completed a record-breaking flight from Japan to Hawaii. And as recently as 2022, July 3rd recorded a heartbreaking modern tragedy, with a shooting at a shopping center in Copenhagen, Denmark, that left 3 people dead and several injured. With all of this immense weight and the sheer volume of events tied to the state, it's no surprise that July 3rd isn't just a day things happened on, it is a day we actively observe globally. In several Christian traditions, it's revered as the feast day of Thomas the Apostle. In Belarus, as we mentioned earlier with the events of 1944, this day is celebrated as Independence Day, commemorating the liberation of Minsk. In the United States Virgin Islands, it's recognized as Emancipation Day, marking the abolition of slavery. And in Myanmar, July 3rd is proudly observed as Women's Day. And hey, we can't forget that the legacy of July 3rd isn't just about events. It's about the people whose lives began on this day too. You have literary giant Franz Kafka, born in 1883, who gave us The Metamorphosis and The Trial. There's politician Lamar Alexander in 1940, global entertainment superstar Tom Cruise in 1962, and the incredibly talented Audra McDonald in 1970. We also see high-profile figures like Julian Assange, born in 1971, and legendary sports figures like Harbhajan Singh, born in 1980. They all share this incredible ledger entry. History is not only written in books, it is lived, remembered, and carried forward through time. When you compress centuries of human endeavor, from ancient emperors to tragic extinctions, massive naval battles, and soaring modern flights, into a single date, that quote really hits home, doesn't it? By looking at July 3rd, we're basically looking into a mirror of our entire world. It shows us exactly who we've been and maybe who we're becoming. So as you glance at your own calendar today, there's really only one question left to ask. What history will you make today?